Do you have a dull knife and know nothing about knife sharpeners?
That's rough, buddy.
Few things are as disappointing as a dull knife, and in this situation, you have two shoulder angels trying to tell you what to do. On one side, there's an angel who wants to lead you down the path of righteousness, to just sharpen your knife. On the other side, there's a demon who wants to lead you down the path that rocks and just buy a new knife. I can tell you from experience that the path that rocks really rocks. Opening a brand new knife is one of life's greatest pleasures, but eventually that new knife will go dull as well. Before long, you will have a box full of lonely, neglected, and dull knives. But that's your problem. I often advocate for the path that rocks because ultimately I'm a guy who sells knives on the internet. The more knives you buy, the happier my boss is. But because I actually like knives, I'm here to lead you down the path of righteousness. Knowing that there are boxes of lonely, neglected, and dull knives makes me sad. Today, we're going to talk sharpeners. Before we tackle which sharpener is best for you, let's agree on a definition of sharpness. First is apex sharpness. Often when illustrating grind and angles, we draw an edge of infinite sharpness. This theoretical edge will always meet at a perfect pointy apex no matter how far you zoom in. But this edge is impossible. In reality, no matter how sharp your edge is, it will always round at the apex. Don't believe me? The sharpest object ever created is a tungsten needle with a point only 1 atom wide. It is literally impossible to get sharper than this, and atoms are round.
Checkmate.
In this definition, sharpness is how long the edge radius is. The shorter the radius, the sharper the edge. The second definition is how much pressure it takes a knife to cut something. This is often measured using an instrument like this bass tester. You press the edge of the knife on this little wire until it cuts, and however much pressure it took is how sharp your knife is. The lower the number, the sharper the knife. This is great in theory, but it doesn't account for a myriad of variables. For example, if you move the knife really quickly, it localizes all the force into one tiny section of the string, just like shooting a slingshot through a piece of paper. And if you land the belly of your edge on the wire, it will glide across the edge for a little ways. And at a microscopic level, your edge is serrated, so this will reduce the number as well. You saw that score I got a moment ago. Here's the same knife I just used, but this time I'm gonna cut really fast and lay on the belly. Look at that improvement. That knife is so sharp, right? No sharpening, just a change in technique, and we've seriously increased our cutting power. The reason I tell you about these two different definitions of sharpness is because which rabbit you choose to chase will determine which type of sharpener you want to get. If you're chasing that first definition of minimizing your edge radius to maximize apex sharpness, you want to remove as many variables from the sharpening equation as you can, which is a great choice for a fixed angle sharpener like this one. In these systems, you clamp the knife in place, set the angle exactly where you want it, and sharpen both sides evenly until you reach your desired level of sharpness. The biggest names in fixed angle sharpeners are WorkSharp, Wicked Edge, KME, Edge Pro, and Lansky. These sharpeners can put ridiculously sharp edges on your knives, so sharp it's scary, but I would be remiss if I did not tell you about one major caveat with these systems. I give you fair warning, it's about to get nerdy up in here. These systems operate from one pivot point. The arc swing of the sharpener makes a perfect circle, but there's a good chance that your edge does not perfectly match that arc swing. For most folders and small fixed blades, this is no problem. It's close enough to that circle that the small changes in edge angle will not affect your knife's cutting performance, but that all changes when we use bigger knives.
Even if you clamp it in the middle, the edge of a kitchen knife will drift far enough away from the sharpener's circle that the sharpener will remove significantly more material the further out from the clamp you go. Not only will this seriously decrease the life of your knife, but it will result in a noticeable change in edge geometry when cutting. Remember, only portions of the edge that rest along this circle will maintain a perfect, consistent edge angle. The more your edge differs from this circle, the less consistent of an edge you will have.
That's why chefs will opt for the traditional whetstone. Whetstones operate by creating a slurry of water and the stone itself to create a nice polishing surface that will remove material gently to create an edge. No matter how long your knife is, a whetstone will enable you to put a very nice edge on it without removing too much material at all, but this too has its caveats. First, whetstones require a lot of practice to get good at. So much practice that many chefs will just opt to hire out for it instead of learning to do it themselves. Second, whetstones wear away with time, so if you sharpen a lot, you may end up having to replace it a few times. Lastly, whetstones aren't especially hard, so they take ages to sharpen the harder steels. But if you put in the time and get really good at maintaining a consistent edge angle over hundreds if not thousands of passes, you can get some stupid sharp edges on your knives. But most people don't need that insane level of sharpness. And those people are often chasing the second definition of sharpness. How much pressure does it take to cut something? I like this definition. My nerdy side likes chasing the edge radius in the name of sheer sharpness, but in practice, a knife just needs to cut, and the level of sharpness you need to get the cut done is surprisingly low. My rule of thumb is that if the knife can just shave a little hair off my arm, it's sharp enough for me. No microscopes, no trigonometry, just good old-fashioned sharpness. In addition, this new level of sharpness is a whole lot easier to meet. To acquire this level of sharpness, it will take practice, but not nearly as much as a whetstone. My favorite sharpener for this is the WorkSharp Guided Field Sharpener. It's small, lightweight, has this handy compartment for storing other knife-related gear, and most importantly, it makes sharpening easy. Instead of whetstones that require lubrication and patience, these plates have diamonds. Even the hardest blade steel is like warm butter compared to a diamond, so sharpening isn't bad even on the super steels. In addition, these diamond plates are backed up with a handy 20-degree edge guide. It might not be your edge's perfect angle, but simply going after will it cut sharpness does not require you to be a snob about micro bevels. The sharpener also has a ceramic rod for sharpening recurves and serrations, and a handy leather strop for polishing edges and removing burrs. It's an entire sharpening system in one compact package, and I can get my shaving edge on all of my knives with it. It's great, and I love it, and it only costs 35 doll hairs. But if you're feeling even lazier than that, I have options for you. First is electric sharpeners, like the WorkSharp Knife and Tool Sharpener. This one sharpens your knives so fast it's silly. So fast that if you take too much time, it can burn your edges and grind away your tips. If you go this route, grab a cheap knife you don't care too much about and learn the ropes. You and your knives will thank me later. These style sharpeners do a great job too. The OG in this category is the Spyderco Sharpmaker, and it is still the king of the hill. It sharpens big knives, small knives, recurve knives, serrated knives, and everything in between. No lubrication, no learning curve, just good, clean, sharp edges. Rolling sharpeners took the knife world by storm this last year, and they're a great option for kitchen knives. They have the limitation that the blade must be broader than the bearing block, but if it is, a rolling sharpener will give you a solid edge. And lastly, we have the easiest and most affordable sharpeners, pull-throughs. Don't get me wrong, if you start with a very dull knife, a pull-through sharpener will make it sharper. They use a V-shaped carbide notch to cut a new edge, and then that same V-shape in a ceramic to hone that edge. This will get your knife sharper, but I have never got a shaving edge from one. So which sharpener is right for you? Well, that's for you to decide. But at the end of the day, each of these sharpeners is trying to accomplish the same task. That task is to remove material from your edge to make the apex thinner. Lots of YouTubers, especially food YouTubers, will tell you that they have found the gospel truth of knife sharpening. And if you sharpen any other way, then you are a fun-hating, puppy-punching, double-parking, movie-talking, meme-stealing, knife-ruining little jerk. Here's the real truth. Any sharpener that will effectively remove material from your edge to thin that apex out will sharpen your knife. This can be anything from the finest 10,000 grit Japanese whetstone to a simple diamond plate to this rock I found in a zero-scaped park strip. All of these food tubers have found sharpening methods that work for them, and if they work for you, great, by all means, use them. But to say that that is the only way to sharpen a knife is a lie. What I'm about to show you is how I sharpen my knives. This method works for me and my sharpness needs. I take my WorkSharp Guided Field Sharpener and I start with the coarse side. I put my edge on this edge guide of 20 degrees and then eyeball how it's going to differ from that, and I sharpen evenly on both sides until the knife is good and angry and it wants to cut. Then I switch to the fine side and repeat the process. When I'm done there, I go and polish on the ceramic hone, and then I strop on this, and I have an edge that is plenty sharp for my needs. But I can hear the sharpness nerds already. Actually, the edge angle isn't consistent because you're holding the sharpener in your hand and introducing too many variables, and the flat of your knife isn't always... That sharpener skips a ton of... Look, I know that there are theoretical ways to get a much sharper knife, but this method works for me. If you prefer a different method, rock on. If your knife sharpening method gets your knives sharper than mine, or even duller than mine, but it meets your needs, then it's a great sharpener for you. Don't let some nerd on the internet yuck your yum. Heck, if you just get a serrated knife and you're okay with sawing, you could get away with never sharpening at all. But that said, you should know that the pursuit of sharpness is ongoing. To this day, the sharpest edge available on a knife is an obsidian flake with an edge radius of a hilarious 3 nanometers. Because nothing is sharper than an obsidian flake, some doctors will use obsidian scalpels for very precise procedures, especially eye surgeries. There will always be a need for sharper edges, so it's not just the knife nerds chasing the edge radius dragon. Whether you're like me and you're happy with a simple shaving edge, you need something even less sharp, or you are after that theoretical edge of infinite sharpness, there is a sharpener for you at BladeHQ.com. If you want to learn more about sharpening or how any given system works, there is a large and thriving community of sharpeners on the internet who are more than happy to help you. But as for me and my collection, the WorkSharp Guided Field Sharpener is the GOAT. If you like videos like this one, where we talk about sharpening and knives and all the other cool things in the world of sharp and pointing, we invite you to subscribe to Blade HQ's YouTube channel and make this a part of your YouTube experience. With that, we'll see you next time.